My name is Ginny, also known as 2/3 Lotus, everywhere on the internet. This clip is part of my series, The Poets of Twitch, where I analyze my viewers' writing live on stream. Nothing has been edited out, so you're seeing this exactly as streamed with all of the imperfections and tangents that come with being live. If you want to catch me live or want more information, check out the description. Otherwise, enjoy some excellent writing. And this is Clean by Anonymous. And that's definitely something that I'm fine with, anonymous submissions. You know, if there are people in chat ever who are lurkers, who don't chat, like, I don't know, I wouldn't know if you lurk all the time on my channel because that's kind of how it works. I know you exist through chat. But if there are people who like perpetually lurk but want to submit as anonymous and just don't really want to be seen on the internet as like, you know, whatever username, whatever, like, that's fine. If you just want to see your poetry on here, like, anonymous is cool. Like, anonymity is a very cool thing. So definitely utilize that. And just, I like when people share art. Okay, Clean by Anonymous. It's been a month. Are you proud? They all say, looking at me with their same cold eyes. No, I am not. For once I wish I could shut it down. The screams and the shouts, only silence would remain in this lone town. I wish to have never started, never have to count the days just like numbers waiting for the day I can meet you again. I'm over it. I promise, I'm better now. Not as prone to attach, I don't love you anymore. I tell myself I never did, trying to oppress the emotions like a little kid. So I tell them, all smiling, that I'm perfectly happy while internally crying. I'm proud, I say, telling them all while they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. Clean by Anonymous. Submitted anonymously. It's by someone. They are not anonymous, but it's submitted anonymously. Clean. No mention of clean in the poem, I think, which is awesome. I just like that. I literally shared a poem at the very start of stream today that was, you know, a sort of, you know, the title didn't make an appearance in the poem. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I'm just bad. But we're going to read it again anyway, so I can find the things that I missed and failed to notice. She couldn't think of names, so she let me name them. Very well. Well, good on you, Asher, for the artistic instincts. It's been a month. Are you proud? They all say, looking at me with their same cold eyes. No, I am not. For once I wish I could shut it down. The screams and the shouts, only silence would remain in this lone town. I wish to have never started, never have to count the days, just like numbers, waiting for the day I can meet you again. I'm over it. I am. I promise I'm better now, not as prone to attach. I don't love you anymore, I tell myself I never did, trying to oppress the emotions like a little kid. So I tell them, all smiling, that I'm perfectly happy while internally crying. I'm proud to say, I'm proud I say, telling them all, while they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. Clean, submitted anonymously. I dig it, and more so than that, I'm going to show you why I dig it, and we're also going to talk about things that can improve poetry. First thing I noticed that I think I guess if you're watching on YouTube, or this person did well, is so something that I see often with people who are new to poetry is kind of a difficulty in rhyming. And I don't necessarily see this here, so this is good. Because rhyming is hard. Some people don't like rhymes. I think there were like 3 camps generally. There are like the verse folks who go like super heavy into rhymes. There's like the we'll call it like the 50-50 group that has like some rhymes but don't go as deep into the verse. I would call this sort of like standard spoken word or slam poetry. And then there's usually like the no rhyme free verse camp. And sometimes like landing in between these things can do you quite poorly, where sometimes new poets, they're like, oh, poetry, rhyme, and they'll try to rhyme like a lot, right? But they don't quite have verse, but they have more than like a sort of comfortable, natural amount of rhyming, and it gets weird, right? Because I think sometimes rhyming, people can definitely see it as like, some people see it as like kind of cringe, and that's usually these people. And then sometimes if you're going like no rhyme, like sort of full free verse, having like a random rhyme or two can just feel a little odd, because rhymes have a certain feeling to them, right? But I think you do actually land fairly well, or they land fairly well, in this like 50-50 camp, where, and I think an important part of rhyming well outside of verse is near rhymes. So these people, I think near rhymes are really important, because if things like exactly rhyme, it can kind of feel like sometimes you're trying to accomplish verse without actually doing it, right? And of course you can still use near rhymes here, but like I think verse definitely loves like perfect rhymes. And I think there's a solid intuition for this here in the poem. And you can use like some of these, but let's see. I was thinking it was in one of these. Like down and shouts, like have a similar feeling that ow. Of course you also do town, but for example, if this was like a perfect rhyme, like another OWN here, it would probably not sound as good as using shouts. And this is sort of like a A B C B, although this is like a sort of somewhere in between a B and a C, which is nice. Like I think that works. If you're new to poetry, I might want to explain that rhyme schemes, how we talk about them, is anything that rhymes with each other is the same letter on a line, right? So A B would look something like I go, I walk, I throw, I talk. Just something simple that's not very poetic, right? Go and throw, rhyme, so they're both A's. Walk and talk, rhyme, so they're B's. And I think near rhymes do a good job of, sort of accomplishing this, like, almost being a B, but, like, not quite. I think it helps. It helps give that feeling of poetry, that poetic feeling. Rhymes without being super verse-y, but, like, not actual verse, which can just come off as inexperienced. So, like, I like that, right? And there was somewhere, it was also like, oh yeah, you had like perfectly happy internally crying. This is sort of a similar thing where you read it, and then also smiling and crying are pretty close to rhymes, but I like that I'm perfectly happy while internally crying. Like, they both have the ly, but they're very different, but it feels like there's some continuity in these lines which connects them. So, like, I do like this. And I think that's something that I often do, especially like the middle of the line, rhyming. So this is cool. I dig, right? And then say and grave, even like waiting, say. There's some like things going on. It feels like you're connecting words. So it's good, right? I like that. But I mean, like, generally there's no hard and fast rules about rhyming. This is just kind of where I feel people tend to land, right? And, like, I did feel very comfortable speaking this poem in a sort of free-spoken way, which sometimes these are better as, like, page poems. This is like reading a sonnet. So, good, right? This is good. And in terms of content, I think we can go into some analysis, because you do some cool things. And one of the things that I felt was like occasionally the idea of pointing, P-O-I, that's definitely the I, pointing to something without saying it. Sometimes you do this well, sometimes it's something to work on. But, for example, where did I feel this happened? Let me read it again. It's been a month. Are you proud? They all say, looking at me with their same cold eyes. No, I am not. For once I wish I could shut it down, those screams and the shouts, only silence would remain in this lone town. So it's actually again in this stanza. This for once, it obviously implies that you often do not want the silence to shut down the screams, the shouts, maybe like the thoughts in your mind, that silence maybe is like a scary thing. These are things that I feel it points to, that I think are cool ideas, right? That maybe could be like interpretation pulled out of this, right? So there's this idea of like, the quiet mind and, actually usually not wanting it. But you don't say this overtly, right? Which is good, I think. I mean, sometimes you want to say things very plainly in your poetry, and sometimes you want to express it in a way that's easy for your reader. But I do think the way that, you do that kind of thing, right? You don't really give us context on that other side, what that for once is, but this also helps your theme a lot, your broader theme here of like contradiction, which is one thing we'll talk about, which I love in poetry. And that's cool. I think I want to go through, before talking about some of the broader themes, and I don't want to talk about broad themes yet, I do want to point out though, just like, and this isn't an issue, but just like spelling error here, but like that's okay. I think there might have been another one somewhere, but it's not really important. Like saying, "Oh, you spelled something wrong," like this poem is less good, like that's nonsense. But the more you write and the more you read, will often help you in just writing better, like grammatically. And I don't really have a it's not a problem, of course, that is there, THEIR, as in the possessive, looking at me with their same cold eyes. Unless you're trying to speak like looking at me with their same cold eyes, as if it's like some weird colloquial their eyes, that their pair of eyes, which maybe is cool, but I don't think you're doing this. Like, I have been informed that you're new to poetry, so sometimes it lets me pull back on the like artistic intentionality thing when I know someone is new. And for you, since you're new to poetry, I want to talk about something that will maybe help you. Maybe it'll blow your mind. Maybe it'll seem obvious. But readers of poetry should, I think, and generally do. You're both dyslexic, lol, so if I had noticed it, I would have fixed it. Yeah, that's okay. Like, it doesn't matter. Especially if this ended up being something like spoken, then it doesn't even matter. There's a sort of advantage to being a slam poet, because you don't actually have to know how to like write the language. In a like sort of correct. I mean, I think correct grammar is dumb. Like, and I say that because I know what you meant, so you didn't even need correct grammar. But so spoken word. Should definitely try reading your poems out loud to people, sharing. Super hard, super scary. Try it with your friends. Anyway, should generally assume, readers should and tend to assume intention. And this just means when I look at your page, 99% of the time, I will assume, looking at your words, that the things you have written are all intentional. And you have put thought into them, that you have a reason in this poem for not using capital letters ever. And that's not an issue. I don't really like capitalizing things, right? And I think like the non-capitalized works fine here, right? It's not an issue, but people will assume that like the semicolon versus the comma versus the period versus the hyphen, and I like this. You have some variety in your punctuation. I'm a fan of that. But, I think there's a tendency to assume that these things are intentional, have meaning, right? Whoa, Viking official. Hey guys, just wanted to come in to say goodbye. Hope y'all stay safe and stay stronger. Viking official. Hi, Viking official. Clearly you're not doing well, and I know that I'm sort of some random person on the internet, but you write beautiful poetry, and I think you're a beautiful person, and I think all people are beautiful, and you I don't know. I've only done this once on the phone. I don't know how to do it on Twitch. Stay in stream, watch this stream, read some poetry. If you're actually gonna do something, at least wait 4 hours and see if you still want to do it then. But fuck. Viking official, call someone, call anyone, call every number in your contacts list and find someone to talk to right now. Um uh I, um fuck. No, keep writing poetry. I, I, you don't 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 tap out. Don't check out now, please. um fuck. What am I supposed to say here, guys? Normally when I talk people out of doing things, I'm on the phone with them, like my friend who I talked off a roof. I know it's hard. You feel alone, but like, uh, or purposeless, or you don't have reason or hope. But I don't know. There are people. There's at least one person, even if you don't think who you can call right now, who can give you more supportive words than I can as a Twitch streamer. But um, stay alive. This is a safe place. This stream. Um, there are safe places. There are phone numbers that are safe. There are warm lines. I don't know where you live, but there are resources. There are phone calls. I've been at that spot, Viking official. I have been laying on the train tracks, waiting for the train to come, and I'm really glad that it didn't. Um, and if it did, I know I wouldn't have moved. Still, um, and I know it sounds preachy, it sounds dumb. It's like I've made my decision. I'm gonna do this. No one can talk me out of this. But at, I don't know. At least talk to someone. At least wait 2 hours. You know, as I laid there on the train track thinking, like, I don't know. I know we've probably thought a lot about this. But also, I'm not the person who should be supporting you right now. And I'm not saying I don't, but I think there are people in your life who know you more and love you, uh, because I can't provide that. I know I got people who care, but that's not enough anymore. Stay safe, y'all, please. Keep writing and giving something to the world. Um, um, I, I can in no way support what you want to do. I think there are many people here who in no way support what you want to do. I don't think anyone in your life does. Um, if you've made up your mind, sure, like I said, like Nerdering is saying now, take a couple of hours. You know, if you can just indulge a random girl from America and sit in this Twitch stream, you don't have to talk. You can just lurk for like uh the next 3 hours. I would much rather that than and if if in a few hours, if in a few days things don't change, like I understand, it's hard for things to feel like they change, but no matter what, I personally would advise you to stay alive. uh, Stay alive, Viking official, please. As just another person imploring with what will they have in knowledge of you from one poem. And there are ways to express this shit and turn it into beauty. Right? I think that emptiness, that lie, that desire for freedom from burden is something that is very difficult to cope with. But yeah, stay alive. You have something to give to the world as well. And I know that now, given that you've written a poem. So, hope to see you back on a future stream. If only to know you're alive. Fuck. Regardless, this stream is not a place for too much prolonged conversation on this subject. I think I've told you what I can and what I will. And we are here to do poetry, and I think out of respect to the person who submitted this, we need to continue. And I'll read it again to get us back on track. Clean, submitted anonymously. It's been a month. Are you proud? They all say. Looking at me with their same cold eyes. No, I am not. For once, I wish I could shut it down. The screams and the shouts, only silence would remain in this lone town. I wish to have never started, never have to count the days just like numbers, waiting for the day I can meet you again. I'm over it. I am. I promise I'm better now, not as prone to attach. I don't love you anymore. I tell myself I never did. Trying to oppress the emotions like a little kid. So I tell them all smiling that I'm perfectly happy while internally crying, I am proud, I say. Telling them all while they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. So, I do think contradiction is a very big theme in this poem, and one that I want to talk about specifically. And I think, you have already demonstrated to yourself, or this person has already demonstrated with this poem, that we can contradict ourselves within poetry, which I think is a big realization. Sometimes people feel they need to be perfectly honest and straightforward and have a single idea, but you sort of do this vacillating back and forth, right? Are you proud? No, I am not. I say I'm proud. The difference between what we show to the world and what we think, right? saying, I'm better now, I'm not prone to attach, but of course the funny thing about writing a breakup poem is that it is still attached, right? You know, there's attachment in the action, right? So this is wonderful that you've demonstrated like this sort of fundamental contradiction. And I do think contradiction gives a lot of drama and a lot of energy to a poem because of how honest it is to real life. I think sometimes in poems we try to describe the world accurately, right? And I don't mean like, because contradiction does exist in real life, but more so without contradiction. That we try to have it be maybe efficient. That we like singular ideas or dichotomies fall into this category, seeing the world as like black and white and these separations of things. And of course, then we can also use poetry to describe in contradiction. And I think, there are lots of poets who do both of these things very well, right? You have, just saying life as it is, simply straightforward. That could be maybe someone like Mary Oliver, who just writes about nature and what is. And of course, then we have things that are deeply contradictory and generally more to do with like the self and like that's not self. The self and how we see the world, which of course is just contradiction. So I think this is good because sometimes people also start in this camp, I would say, and don't always get to this camp. But I think being here is also good. Like, I think it's a strong start, right? From a broader, like, idea sort of thing. And, if we're talking strictly, like, analysis of this and the things that we're kind of saying, right? I am not proud. Oh, here. So for once I wish I could shut it down. The screams and the shouts, only silence would remain in this lone town. So the fact that this is for once also sort of indicates, that contradiction, which I also already said, and leans into that, like, I normally want one thing, but this has me thinking differently, right? And that the self can kind of differ in these internal ways tends to be that when I look at this stuff, I do get fairly philosophical often. In terms of like, especially the contradiction in the self and whatever. I wish to have never started. Never have to count the days. Just like numbers, waiting for the day I can meet you again. And of course, here's another contradiction, which is a little more veiled, and I think that's awesome. I think the one joy in displaying contradiction is showing it subtly, right? Sometimes it's easy to call out, the way, like, for example, this kind of contradiction, or just the, like, I am not, I say I am, right? These are straightforward. But to say, I wish to have never started something in the past, sort of against waiting for the day I can meet you again, start again, you have these in two entirely different tenses, past and future, but it still demonstrates the same sort of contradiction. And then you say, I'm over it. I am. Contradiction in the nature of the poem. I promise I'm better now. Not as prone to attach. I don't love you anymore. I tell myself I never did. trying to oppress the emotions like a little kid. So, of course, the normal term would be to suppress emotions. Suppress emotions, right? And that means to like push them down and ignore them. But you take the angle of oppress the emotions, which I do think is very like childlike, kind of bullying your emotions away, which is very clear in this contradiction. Like, I say I'm fine, I'm not fine. I say I don't want this, I do want this, and you're like really kind of ping-ponging the emotions back and forth. So in that sense, using like oppress, because you're clearly not suppressing them, they're clearly here, right? So that's like a great word here that I really like. And so I tell them all smiling that I'm perfectly happy while internally crying. Simple contradiction. I'm proud, I say, telling them all, while they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. And this gives an interesting like perspective at the end, because it points to other people having some amount of contradiction in their speech, right? They are unknowingly waiting for this thing, which is probably very, it feels very hostile. And there's a sort of contradiction in not admitting a hostility that you believe in to other people. So, in that sense, I like that this view of the other people connects back to the broader theme, right? I'm going to take a short little break right now, because I sure as hell need one. And I will come back in a moment. So I'm going to run this ad for those viewing on Twitch. Don't watch it. Stand up. Stretch. Drink water. Care for yourself. If you're watching on YouTube, you can skip 2 minutes ahead. Welcome back. I'm Ginny, also known as Two-Thirds Lotus, everywhere on the internet. So, I guess I'm very rattled. I mean, this is a community where we talk about, deep emotions and pain. It's often what's in poetry. But I don't know. Hope you're still here, Viking official. But my follower count went down by 1. That's not the issue. The issue is, that a person might be dead. Like, what am I what am I supposed to do when someone says goodbye in my Twitch chat? I'm not mad about the action, I'm just so rattled and kind of confused. It's... And of course, like, Viking official, I hope you're still here. I don't know you, but I know your work now. And... this was 2 days ago. I think the VOD of the Viking official poem got put on YouTube an hour ago. I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how to process that. Of course I don't even know if, Viking official is alive or going to go through with it or whatever. You have to trust that they would, right? But then, like, it's not always success. I don't know how to handle that in my chat. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's I can't do anything. I'm just sitting here live on Twitch. I kind of just want to put that aside and read the poem, and that's probably what, to some extent, you all want too, because we're here to read poetry. But then also, my mind is currently swirling with, like, what if the person who just talked in chat is dead? Like... I started out, we were talking about, poetry, zine, the Poets of Twitch, anthology, and communities. And of course, people who care, but that's not enough. Like, that's a point of a complete abstraction and denial away from communities. I fundamentally think that's how we keep together and survive is our communities. And so, like, at that point I see that and I'm like, how can I help? What can I do other than And I don't need an answer. I don't want an answer. You all are just random people on Twitch. I mean, you're not random people on Twitch. I read your poetry, your artists, your poets, your beautiful people. No one's a random person on Twitch. There are people behind usernames and like sometimes I say I'm a random girl on Twitch, but I'm a person and I don't know. Sorry, Arson Asher's friend, for this happening during me trying to read and analyze your poem. I hope you're understanding. And admittedly, this all I don't think I can cut it all out of the VOD. I don't think I will. I generally don't edit them. You know how shitty it feels to run an ad after someone says they're gonna kill themselves? That's like the absurd fucking reality we live in. It's like separate yourself from your audience, but your audience is real people who have problems and feelings, and you read their poetry and you feel you get insight into them and try to relate, and then I'm sorry. Like, of course, it's not about me. It's about the person who could be dying right now. Who I think if they were in chat would send a message. I would hope. I don't. I don't know. And then, like, you know, there's this simultaneous compulsion to say like, the show must go on. I'm a Twitch streamer, I have to keep streaming. And, like, you know, if I sit here silently moping about, you know, the suicide note in my chat right now, like, I'll lose content and viewers. Like, that's messed up. Why is my brain telling me that? I guess I have something to write a poem about later. Not to sound insensitive, I've talked friends off of roofs. I've attempted, like, but how do you react to that when it's in chat? Twitch chat. Hey, chat. Oh, good. I don't know. I don't know. I think the brain makes a lot of wild connections sometimes. Remember, this is not on you. You're not responsible. You made your position clear. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. it's like, I guess it's still just like, regardless, right? Um, I mean, it's out of my hands, right? Um, I guess. But it feels so impossible to right now to, to yes, here's hoping we see them again. How do I person that we're talking about, listen to your favorite music, reach out to family. Yeah, yeah, I mean, hopefully you're here and you see that, but, you know, that was half an hour ago now. Remember that there is a reason to keep living. I mean, yeah, that's what I said. No, really, like, thank you, King Poyo. Those are things I think we all need to remember. There is a reason to keep living. Things will get dark, and art and communities are places to support us through that. But then also, there's a pain in there's a pain in losing community. I mean, Viking Official hasn't sent that many poems here. Viking Official hasn't been in chat that much, but that doesn't like matter to me. Like, they're a person who shared their work and their art and themselves here. Um, Rob Teska's slogan: every little helps. Every little bit helps. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you all in chat are helping me right now. Try to flip the switch and go back to streamer mode. We're almost there. We're almost back to streaming, but I also might just break down because we live in a hyper real lie. Goddamn internet. I think I'm speed running, even though I don't know this person. Like, fundamentally, it's death. I'm like speed running like mini status of grief. So I was like mad. I'm mad at the internet. Like, goddamn internet. Why does this reality have us cope with such things? Why does it force other people to cope with such things and push them to this extreme? I was like doing the denial. Like, oh well, maybe it'll, you know, whatever. Maybe they're still here, or maybe intervention, whatever. And like, I don't know the other ones, but like the actual grief of, I guess, like, what the fuck. You do not have to go back to streamer mode. This is heavy stuff. Self-care is important. It's also important to deal with this stuff in a healthy way. Yeah, and I mean, I guess the feeling is that this is in the midst of me looking at someone's work, someone who deserves just as much care and attention, and respect, and in a sense to have that kind of ripped to the side by this in chat. Like I don't know if I can bring myself to just stop stream with this poem in front of me that I haven't, you know, finished laying out my points on. But also like it feels disingenuous to, you know, contradiction. This is why we write poetry about contradiction, because life is full of it. Everyone now, water, food, fresh air, self-care mode. Yeah, I mean, definitely do that if this is kind of has any of y'all shaken. Like, that says contradiction. Contradiction. The life that we live, full of contradictions. Like whatever's happening on stream right now. A football club from my country just won the championship, and the streets are now like that scene from Planet of the Apes where they battle on the bridge. There's so much noise. That sounds kind of exciting, kind of terrifying. But that's awesome. I made spaghetti carbonara there. I appreciate the topic changes. I got a pack of spaghetti, a banana, and Hot Wheels. I don't even know how those three things are related, but spaghetti's good. Banana, I put a banana in my smoothie this morning. Hot Wheels, that's baker stuff. Hot Wheels are great. Little cars. Although I hate cars and I hate car-centric society, so actually Hot Wheels bad. I'm going to Wembley on Sunday. What is Wembley? What is a Wembley? I spelt it banana. Oh. That's funny. That's good. That sounds like when you make food as a child. Piano jump scare. It was a lean on it. Big stadium in London, UK. Is that Wembley? Wembley is a stadium. So are you watching, I guess, football then? To indulge your, how the rest of the world says the sport where you kick the ball around? Or is it a different sport? Yes, first game. Who is playing? I presume since it's a big stadium, this is like Premier League. England and Ireland. Oh, so it's a friendly, international friendly. That's exciting. That's very exciting. I bet that will be lots of fun and much energy. So I'm stoked for you for that. Enjoy the game. But I think I'm going to try to get back to this poem and figure out how to continue not a friendly. Well, there's like friendlies and there's like competitive games. Is this like Hi, high caliber. Um, Currently trying to rapidly change the topic until I forget about uh, someone who basically said goodbye to the world in my chat earlier, uh, and Viking official whose poem we read 2 days ago, and we're trying to get back to actually writing, so or reading and analyzing. My friend uh, went from hating football to loving it, specifically the club that just won. She must be on the streets right now. All right, that's pretty awesome. Good time to start being a fan. Let's talk about Spider-Man. King Poyo, I love the young Gen Z, like, energy of you just being able to, like, summon completely random topics, like, da, 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 back and forth. It's great. Um, this is such a zeal for life there. Spider-Man. I mean, I'm not a big Marvel superhero kind of girly, if I had to say so myself. I find the movies tired and repetitive. I do think Spider-Man is cool, the webs and stuff, and I think there's like one of the cooler superheroes, Spider-Man, right? Uh, not a ton of like hard, like super overpowered power. You just sort of like shoot webs, have senses, which like makes it way cooler than being like an indestructible god or something like Thor or whatever. Or like a time traveling space wizard. I love Marvel. I watch hour and a half long videos about the comic book lore. I mean, I do think the comic books would probably interest me more because the movies are just you know, sort of the same big blockbuster film type thing, right? I do have to admit the movies are the worst version. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Live action one's not Into the Spider Verse or ATSP that's not Into the Spider Verse, but maybe you hit the wrong letters. ATSP. Well, SP could be Spider Man. I don't know. Spider. My favorite live action movie, Tobey Maguire's 1 and 2. So those are, yeah, Tobey Maguire, that's the first Spider-Mans. That's like the lyric in that Across the Spider-Verse. Okay. So yeah, I'm pretty good. Uh that's like Eminem's song from the most recent album that says Tobey Maguire got bit by a spider. See me, see me, it was a goat. Like you're the goat. um anyway. This is what I know. I feel like I've seen maybe one of those movies. I haven't seen a lot of Marvel stuff. Um Dude, let's talk about feelings and poetry. Hey, Bukowski, it's Charles. If you gotta use BIM as 3, it goes bim 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 all together. It's very important that the emote is used that way because that's what Bukowski says. Bim 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 bim. Lamau the derailment. Well, the derailment is good. The derailment is good because it distracts me from like mortality, specifically in relation to chat. I was about to like actually settle in and sit down, but I can stretch. I did yoga this morning, so I'm very stretched out. Watch, yo. I'll show you the big stretch. Good crack there. We stretch in here. like a stretch redeem is worth like a real stretch, you know? I didn't even say it wasn't, just marveling at the effectiveness. Oh yeah, no, it's real. What are you talking about? I am immortal, Lamau? Congrats, Arson Asher. It's a good, maybe, I don't think, I think mortality is a pretty important thing as artists, but I'm not sure. No reason to not do it. Perks of me having hyper focuses not on the spectrum as far as I'm aware. Yeah, no, you definitely. Heads up, gamer. What's up, Do on the Grass? We're reading Clean, submitted anonymously. Trying to get back on track, but also trying to not be on track because feelings are sensitive right now. Poet I translated the last time I sent something has a novel called Batman in Chile, where Batman is a CIA operative to connect to the comics topic. That's crazy. I do need to read some more of your translations, Ray. I really kind of haven't done those, and those are like way buried back in the teapot submissions. But because like translation work is sort of akin to original work, and I think I sort of should go back and acknowledge that. Whoa! Welcome, Raiders. Hello. Thank you, Nikki Hooray, for the raid. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ginny, also known as 2/3 Lotus. As you can see, we are currently about to get right back on track and doing some poetry. What we do here is analyze poetry. It's open submissions, so like there's a command in chat where you can submit your poetry, and I'll read it on stream and analyze it because that's what I'm good at. So welcome in everyone. Just let me give you a shout out. If my Twitch works. Anyway, so yeah, we call it the Poets of Twitch. We're trying to publish a big ol' anthology together, which is super cool. And we just have a nice little community of poetry and all that kind of stuff. That's amazing. Do on the Grass recommended you, and I just had to swing by and see what's going on. Love learning and poetry. Very excited. Awesome. Well, definitely stick around. We're about to get back into a poem after what is it? Nikki, hooray. And thank you for the follow. I appreciate that very, very much. And we are currently reading, I will give it another read. It is submitted anonymously. But it's called Clean, and this is by someone who they sort of told me, or I've been told they're new to poetry, and so we're trying to give, some more introductory analysis, some advice, some critique, how we can improve, this poem. And it's a breakup poem. Absolutely. Thank you for the shout out. I'll need to lurk for now, but I'll be listening. Yeah, absolutely take some time, get away from the screen. Streaming is hard. I know that. Had a little bit of a dicey situation on stream like an hour ago, but we'll get right back into this. Clean, anonymously submitted. It's been a month. Are you proud? They all say, looking at me with their same cold eyes. No, I am not. For once I wish I could shut it down. The screams and the shouts, only silence would remain in this lone town. I wish to have never started, never have to count the days just like numbers, waiting for the day I can meet you again. Yes, the notes on here are from me already. We started it earlier. I'm over it. I am. I promise I'm better now, not as prone to attach. I don't love you anymore. I tell myself I never did. Trying to oppress the emotions like a little kid. So I tell them all smiling that I'm perfectly happy while internally crying. I'm proud, I say, telling them all while they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. Thank you for the follow, Hunter. So these notes are mine. This is what a poem tends to look like by the end of my reading of it. We do lots of scribbling. Think of it as like a deranged Khan Academy, with poetry. So, we were talking before about contradiction as like a very fundamental thing that can be used as a theme throughout a lot of poetry. And I think it's a very useful theme because throughout this poem we sort of go back and forth with the internal contradictions. Also, hi Nico, welcome in. Bim bim bim. So you have these internal contradictions, being happy while crying, proud to say, verbally, but then not proud internally, these sort of, like I said, vacillating back and forth on thoughts on the relationship, right? This, of course, I guess not of course, but it's a breakup poem. It's been a month. The people who say, are you proud to break up with this person? And then this idea of never having met all of this, right? You've submitted something through normal means? Thank you. It makes my life easier. So, I think we did sort of dig into most of the different contradiction and trying to get back in the swing of this one. While they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. Thank you for the follow, Fernster Bank. Many thanks. Where were we? It's been a month. I should have never started. Rhymes, punctuation. Let's talk about punctuation and capitalization. We're sort of pretty far into this poem in terms of analysis, so this is when I like to dig into some of the details. And so this poet, I generally talk to you as you. For anyone who's new, if I say you, I'm talking to the poet, right? But you already use quite a breadth of punctuation, and it's very, very good. I think it can help you express your ideas more effectively, and I've already circled some of these because we briefly mentioned it earlier. But I think, so looking at these, something we can do as readers is kind of analyze the use of punctuation. When we use commas, what that means for this poem. When we use periods, when we use hyphens. These can actually have meaning. Right? And maybe we find some, maybe we don't. But, comma, oops. So, let's start by actually looking at where we use periods. I think periods are, they're the most common punctuation mark. Maybe commas are more so. But I think periods are maybe one of the most easy to analyze punctuation in poetry. And that's just because they have an association. They have this idea of like finality, which you see in a lot of poems. Some people use periods only when talking about things that are a strong, stable end. Some people use periods not at all, because they want to have a constant flow through their poem, right? To be fair, there are only like 5 punctuation. Hard disagree. There are so many punctuations. But we'll get there. So in this you have, are you proud, they all say, looking at me with their same cold eyes, period. Right? And in a sense it does give these sentences very much a feeling of like a weight to them, as opposed to something with a comma. It's been a month, comma. Are you proud, they all say. looking at me with their same cold eyes. Can also inform performance of the poem, right? No, I'm not. For once I wish I could shut it down, the screams and the shouts. I think there's a comma buried under there. Oh, there's a colon. See? Only silence would remain in this lone town. So here, the colon operates really well. Shut it down, the screams and the shouts. And then the colon, because of that, within this idea, only silence would remain in this lone town. Cool. But again, there's the finality. I wish to have never started. Right? Using a period here I think is great because it says like it's one contained idea. I wish to have never started. And then I never have to count the days. Just like numbers, waiting for the day I can meet you again. And I think maybe I like the period here, right? Because we do sort of have them for these like final sentences, these very strong points. We do say just like numbers here, and I find that to be maybe not the most important line to emphasize here, right? The period is very kind of emphatic compared to like a comma or a dash. I wish to have never started. Period. Like, boom. Never have to count the days, just like numbers. Or we could have a comma and sort of flow into this. Waiting for the day I can meet you again. It matters, like in the flow of the reader and in the flow of the speaker. I'm over it. I am. And here, if we want to look at the semicolon, I think that's like a beautiful thing. It has the comma, the continuation, and the period, like the stop. And it feels almost like it can be used in this poem with this idea of internal contradiction, where we say, I'm over it, I am. And if we had it with a period, it might say like, this is true, this is confirmed, this is certain. There's a certainty in the period. But the semicolon pulls it back a little bit. And I guess what I'm trying to show here is that punctuation can have emotion, which is like sort of wild. I promise, comma, I'm better now. Sort of mixing these again. Not as prone to attach. Which, this one being final, maybe says that there's some truth in that. Maybe that there's some emphasis in this line. Which could indicate some amount of like truth to this line. It could also like double down on the like irony and contradiction, given that it is fundamentally attached to write a poem about a breakup. Like it's so attached. I don't love you anymore. I tell myself I never did, trying to oppress the emotions like a little kid. So I think, maybe just accidentally moved this. The use of punctuation maybe isn't super consistent in where you place these things, but the thought of maybe using semicolons as this half stop, half go really does give the impression of a sort of contradiction within the punctuation. And one thing that's lovely in poetry is sometimes you have a theme, right? And I think one of the main themes or ideas, just a theme is basically an idea, of this poem is contradiction. And of course, contradiction. And we can express our theme just through words. We can say, I am proud, well, in one line, and then saying, I am not, which you do, right? I am not, I wrote do because I was saying do. I am not proud. That's just a very simple linguistic contradiction. But we can pull contradictions, or our theme more so, to deeper levels. Let's say we wanted to talk about contradiction in our structure, right? This is one way that we can, dig into our theme structurally. Because structure can convey contradiction. One way, let's say, things being opposite and different and opposed, could be to put some writing on this side, put some writing on this side. It shows an opposition, a contradiction, which maybe is more effective in something that's directly in opposition as opposed to contradiction, but it's an idea, right? We can also talk about verse, having steady, continuous verse, like let's say a pattern, whatever, A, B, A, B, and then like A, and then breaking the pattern, breaking the verse. This is a way to show contradiction throughout. An idea. I think applying verse to a poem like this would be too far of a step in terms of editing, and I don't think it would improve this poem, but like, these are just ideas, right? And then we can go even deeper to the level of, again, something like punctuation, which is maybe within the idea of structure, but, every symbol we put on the page and how we put it, where we put it, can be used for our theme. So, the semicolon, right? If we wanted to go into weird punctuation, parentheticals, we could like open parentheses and not close them. Same with quotation marks and, question marks. I don't think you necessarily question yourself in this poem, which can be something when we're contradicting. We say something, but it's in question, right? And it might be a little bit too on the nose, like if I said, I am over it, I am, question mark. That would just be saying like, okay, look, we're clearly like questioning and contradicting this. But let's say like, I wish to have never started. Never have to count the days. Just like numbers. Question mark. Maybe this implies that the simplicity of counting numbers is not here. It's not really just like counting numbers, because a day passing is more than just ticking a number off the list, right? That's sort of an idea. So, and of course, in terms of just like sort of grammatical advice, you could use quotation marks within a poem. I like doing this. So, are you proud? They all say. Which, when you read this line, it's been a month, are you proud? They all say. With no punctuation. You can just make the line itself feel sort of not super readable. You could throw a comma. You could italicize this. You could do a question mark and have it be, a separate like sentence. Are you proud? Question mark. Because it's a question. They're asking a question, right? So these are all options. All options you can choose. And I do think it's as simple as just like you can look on your keyboard and all the different cool punctuation marks you have access to, and like, yeah, freaking use them. They're cool. And there's overuse. There's such a thing. But I am personally a punctuation fan, so I think you already do some cool things. Especially this semicolon. It might not be intentional, you're new to poetry, but this semicolon feels intentional, and it feels really good in like the moving forward but not moving forward kind of period but a comma way. I like this a lot. Like, this is a cool thing for the poem, and you can definitely lean into it. Going through the ads right now, but hello, I'm here. Yeah, pre-rolls have been on for a bit because I've been snoozing ads because I got a raid. Uh, so, um, there's gonna be like more ads in like 10 minutes, Drowning Devil, but I'm gonna snooze it again just for you. So, I guess you didn't even hear that. It's funny. Welcome, Drowning Devil. So, I think this last sentence is one that really interests me from like a thematic perspective of what you're actually saying. While they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. Right, I'm proud, I say, telling them all, while they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. So, of course, death, whenever you can sort of substitute that word, fairly hostile. And you do have at the beginning, are you proud, they all say, looking at me with the same cold eyes. And I'm pretty sure if I have this correct, it's been a while since I've had like relationship drama, but if you like break up with someone, they'll say like, are you proud? Basically implying like, are you proud that you like hurt this person or led them on, depending on their perspective on how you treated this relationship. Right? I think this is something that happens, which I think this probably makes this poem feel fairly but it's interesting because in some sense there's an amount of desire in this question to see you say like no, and hear that you're suffering over this relationship, maybe wanting to hear of my grave, my pain. Right? That's what they want. But you sort of skirt this question and cover it up with the smile, which in a sense maybe feels somewhat emotionally liberating, which is good, right? Yet also the I guess contradiction there is that what you're hiding inside is that like you are not okay, and that it is not in fact liberating to say something like, yeah, I'm proud of this, I am happy, because it's all a lie, right? And that's definitely cool. And you definitely toy here with the idea. I'm throwing lots of concepts at you as a new poet, but of an unreliable narrator. Unreliable narrator is kind of what is happening here, where you show us through this poem, and you know it's first person, it's I, so we have the narrator, which is maybe you, which is maybe the speaker, right? But the subject, the narrator, says all of these things that show that they really don't have a good grasp on their own emotions here, right? Switching back and forth, contradiction, not saying what we're feeling. And when you set up this kind of thing, the unreliable narrator, because we don't know really at that point what we can trust about them, what they're saying, you give us an opportunity when you say, like, when you write, I'm proud, I say, you do that, I'm proud. This is, again, from the perspective of that narrator, which could just be like they sort of could be proud, which is weird to think about in saying this, like actually being proud, because you do have this feeling of possibly liberation that won over them, telling them this where they want to see you suffer, like getting something over these people who want to see you suffering. Are they proud? Well, maybe you're proud of that. It's just to say, I think the idea of setting up mistrust in your narrator within a poem is definitely like a good thing. It's not always a good thing, but I think it's effective, right? I'm listening to Seabad right now. I don't know what that is. Sorry if this class is as a self-promo, but it is cats barking at doorbells. I really have no idea what that is. To be honest, if that's music, then like, bang on, listen to music while you're listening to me. That's fine. I don't know. If it's your own music, then, or whatever, cool. I don't know. Since you say self-promo. And I'm going to leave any analysis of the title out of this one for our anonymous person. Oh, the ads are starting. Oh, no, not immediately. Because the title is not by this person, it's by Arson Asher, their friend who sent this. It's a band, okay. But maybe we can talk about, since neither of these poems were titled, after a brief ad break, we can talk about titling your poem, right? Because that's certainly like a fun thing, which can be hard. I think sometimes new poets will struggle to title the poem. But I am going to run a brief ad break. For anyone new around here, I would suggest please don't watch them. Don't watch the ads. I don't want you to watch ads. I don't want that. Ads are like commodifying you and like turning your time into money. So please stand up and get some water. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Just like, and don't open TikTok either. It's like the same thing. I'll be right back though. Hello, and welcome back. I am still Ginny, and I'm still known as 2/3 Lotus, and we're going to figure out how to title this poem, which is currently called Clean, but this isn't invalidating the title of this poet. Submitted anonymously by this person's friend, who then titled their poem. So, to be clear, I'm not saying this title is bad. I just would like to talk about titling a poem since it was not originally titled by the author, right? And I am of the opinion, hate me, title equal good. No title equals bad. I don't mean that a poem is bad for not having a title, but I definitely prefer poems with titles. I think it is almost always a missed opportunity to not title your poem. The only time I don't title my poem is if I'm writing something on X and I run out of characters. So, why do I think this? Right? Looks like this says Bard. Bad. Why do we like titles? I think titles are great to give context and really inform your reader. I think the title is a way outside the poem to give a little bit of what was I writing here? Inform. Inform your reader. So inform, because I'm also of the opinion, there's some sort of leaps of logic here, that a title generally should relate to your whole poem, like the whole thing. It doesn't have to necessarily directly connect, but it should give, through this context, new knowledge on every line. Let's say if it's a title that isn't actually like a quote from the poem, or it should show us throughout every line what we should sort of be thinking about, right? Because if I title a poem, right, and what we should be thinking about in our brains, right? This is a brain. The title tells us kind of what to think about throughout the poem. If we see the first thing on the page and it goes like title, we look at it, we see it, and we're like, wow, that's what this is about, which is generally good. And you can mess around with this stuff. I think there's lots of ways to mess around with this stuff. You can have a poem be untitled, but then have the title at the end. You can title something as a rejection of this whole idea and have it be entirely different. I do that sometimes. I wish I had something to submit, but I haven't written a lot of poetry, so though I have written the line, I sit at the end of the universe waiting for the end of what was. It's a banger. Yeah, expand that, something good. It's almost a poem in itself. I think it's like one off from a haiku. Is that a Sokka haiku? I sit at the end of the universe waiting for the end of what was. You wrote a Sokka haiku. That's actually super funny. It's a haiku with an extra syllable referencing Sokka from Avatar: The Last Airbender getting kicked out of the thing for a haiku that's one syllable too long. Anyway, don't keep it like that. But so Christ is king. Sokka mentioned. Yeah, Sokka is Christ and Sokka's king. I know this is a random person saying Christ is king. I mean, that's true. Avatar: The Last Airbender mentioned. Yeah, I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. I watched it for the first time like over the last year, and had never had anything spoiled up until like I'm 20 years old, which is insane. All I knew was like, certain character has redemption arc, and which you can tell, because like of course he's dying for a redemption arc, right? Your bio is a reference to Korra. That's awesome. I think it's funny. You come into chat, this random string of letters. You're a bot, probably. It says Christ is King. I don't know if it is that showing up in chat. It is. I think it's funny. Like, is that gonna convert me? I accept Christians here. I think Christianity is like a banger religion, except for the evil stuff. But like, I don't know what the point is. You know, someone came in and said like, follow the middle path. I'd be equally like, dude, what? So let's look at titling this poem. I know I'm talking to a bot. It's kind of fun. It's been a month. Are you proud? They all say, looking at me with their same cold eyes. No, I am not. For once I wish I could shut it down, the screams and the shouts. Only silence would remain in this lone town. This is something that gives me an idea, because this poem is probably an expression of the screams and the shouts and the thoughts about this and still wanting to get it out of your head. Which then, if the entire poem like represents the sort of the thoughts that you really don't want to be, like, you know, you want the silence in this lone town. So you could have a title, something to do with that. I don't know, something about not having silence here about this thing. Zuko be angry, gets sick, he says, hey, Zuko here. And that's rough, buddy. He now has funds. So anyway, this is an idea for a title, right? I wish to have never started. Never have to count the days, just like numbers. Waiting for the day I can meet you again. In a sense, a line like this, like sometimes you have lines in your poem which feel like could act as titles. If you say waiting for the day I can meet you again, this completely changes our interpretation of the poem, which makes it really like clear a desire and maybe not a pride, which it's pretty clear we're not proud of this. But this shows just such an overt degree of continued attachment. Sometimes you just have a line in your poem, and it can relate to the entire thing in the sense of giving information about how to interpret every line, because we would see it through the lens of waiting for the day I can meet you again, right? My new life motto is, I'm loud, I'm boring, I'm preachy, and annoying. I mean, I think I would tend toward less boring, captivate people, less preachy, you scare away less people, and then it just ends up being more effective. And annoying, like you're gonna annoy everyone all the time, so just do that. Like, I'm down for that. I'm over it. I am. I promise, I'm better now. Not as prone to attach. I don't love you anymore. I tell myself I never did. Some lines are not suitable for titles. I don't love you anymore is like so, I don't know, probably too on the nose, too straightforward, something like that, where it feels like dramatic and poignant. I don't love you anymore, and I wrote a poem about it. I would suggest not to do that. It can read as a little just like, like, okay, too on the nose, right? I tell myself I never did, trying to oppress the emotions. I already told you how much I like this little part of this line, oppressing the emotions, and I think that could serve as a part of a title if you wanted to, because it feels like we're banging at these emotions, trying to get rid of some, have some come through, like disingenuity in the way we speak, and so that's kind of cool, like a little kid. So I tell them all smiling that I'm perfectly happy while internally crying. I'm proud, I say, telling them all, while they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. Something like this, right? I think the way, everyone listening to Hear of Your Grave gives a context on your outlook and the way you think, especially the way you express to other people. So that could be like title inspiration, right? We can also go back to our theme, contradiction. Never just title your poem like the theme, though. Never, as in, whenever I say never, it's a lie. Never is a lie. If I say never, I don't mean it. I say don't often, or that I advise against it. If you just call this contradiction, you're like, oh, it's dumb. Feels like a dumb title to me. Like, I wouldn't name this contradiction. But again, my aesthetics don't have to apply to yours. If you like something I don't like, that's fine, right? If I call a title dumb, that's probably the one you should use, because I'm bad at poetry. But, you're new to poetry. This is your one and only chance, my friend, to call this poem one and just go through your entire poetic career numbering them. And this is obviously very, very choice, but if you start now, you can never go back, right? Because you don't have to go through and be like, is this poem, like on your 17th poem, you decided to do this? Should I do, is this 17? Is this 18? Did I lose a poem? This is sort of a joke, but in all honesty, you still can. Like literally, I think any title is probably better than no title. Clean is cool. I could definitely go back through all these lines, think about it in the context of clean, and probably find new things, right? Which admittedly, that's good, right? But you have many choices for titles, and I definitely think you should engage with that. Tried and true method is going to be take an important line. This one in particular is dead center in your poem. Dead center, end, start. These are like good places to pull your title from. They have weight. I feel like I noticed this a lot. Just beginning, middle, and end, and then all this stuff is filler. I'm not saying that some of your poem is filler. It's more like a practice in general. We start here, we use some words to get to here, and then we use some words to get to here. Very often in poems. So you can look to these spots to draw from. I think, Are You Proud? Perfect title. Something about, the grave, perfect title. Waiting for the day I can meet you again. It definitely changes the feel, but it works as a title. It all depends on what you're trying to evoke, right? And part of that is probably just not knowing like how titles can impact a poem since you're new, but titles, cool. Came up with a poem idea, I'm gonna flesh it out while I listen. That's what you should be doing. Y'all should be like writing poems while you listen. I mean, also you can just rapidly listen to learn about poetry. That's cool too. But I like when my community writes, because writing more art. I am an artistic accelerationist. We need more art in the world at all costs, and that will fix things. But I think that given that title talk, I think that's my thoughts. Does anyone have questions on Clean by Anonymous? Or not by Anonymous, but submitted anonymously? I don't think like Anonymous can be a person, right? Any questions before we give it a final read and then go on to another work? Any clarification? Any comments? Do we have any comments for this new sprout of a poet who we want to nurture into a great poetic tree, giving us many apples to feed on? Now's your chance. Nothing? We'll give you all a second. I'm gonna take that as a no. So, I will. I know sometimes it takes a little while to like type up a response, but y'all can be doing this the whole time, not just when I ask. If you're watching, like I said, you should be writing your own stuff. But here's clean, submitted anonymously. It's been a month. Are you proud? They all say, looking at me with their same cold eyes. No, I'm not. For once I wish I could shut it down, the screams and the shouts, only silence would remain in this lone town. I wish to have never started, never have to count the days just like numbers. Waiting for the day I can meet you again. I'm over it. I am. I promise I'm better now, not as prone to attach. I don't love you anymore. I tell myself I never did. Trying to oppress the emotions like a little kid. So I tell them all smiling that I'm perfectly happy while internally crying. I'm proud, I say, telling them all, while they're unknowingly waiting to hear of my grave. Clean, submitted here anonymously. Thank you so much, anonymous poet. You are a poet, even though you are new. You are a poet, having written a poem. And I think it's great. I think you do a lot of really good things, which we talked about. You have some room for improvement, lots of ideas, always the case. And I think you have a long poetic journey ahead of you. And you and your friend, Arson Asher, absolutely should continue to write alongside each other and improve, and I think you will. And I'm super stoked if I get to see more of your work down the line. I'm super stoked to hear it. That's good. You need some snaps for that. That's what you do if you're a poet. You snap. Thank you for watching. I encourage you to check out the rest of the series, follow if you enjoyed, and stop by Twitch if you want to share your own work. See you there.